It's coming up to 17 minutes to 6. You are with Checkpoint on RNZ. Last night we went inside Te Au Rere a Te Tonga, a youth justice residence on the outskirts of Palmerston North. It's run by Oranga Tamariki, not corrections. But the children aged 14 to 17 who were sent there will almost certainly end up in jail if their offending doesn't stop. Given the coverage of youth offending of late, dairy robberies, car thefts and high-speed police pursuits, we wanted to see the places where some of our most at-risk and high-risk young people end up. Oranga Tamariki agreed with no conditions other than we couldn't identify the children or their victims. There are 4 such centres in the country with a total of 140 beds. It's not many, but the care is intensive and the young people who receive it almost without exception have come from homes where violence, drug and or alcohol addiction issues and or economic deprivation have defined their childhoods. It's a chance to break the cycle. And for many it's their last chance before they're treated as adults. Shot and edited by Claire Easton Farrelly, this is part 2 of our 2-part look at these young New Zealanders and the place and people trying to make them and us safe. How old are you?
14 now.
How's your childhood been?
Not that great. Upside down. Didn't really have the best family that was there for me. And the person that was there was my nan. Yeah.
But even nans can only do so much. What was your life like growing up when you were a little guy?
Family separated. They just started smoking crystal meth just to show my family apart.
Who was smoking it, your mum and your dad?
No, just my dad. Yeah, my mum just left him. Got sick of it.
And what was your dad like when he was smoking meth?
Because my dad's a patched up mobster, gang member. Yeah, my mum just didn't want that no more for our family.
Was there violence in your childhood?
Yeah, a lot of my brothers.
Visiting Te Au Rere a Te Tonga is to see into a world most of us will never know. Home is where the harm is. And if they haven't already been removed from home, many of the kids here left home when they could. And some of them ended up on the streets. And why were you living on the streets?
My dad.
Dads are a common factor. Neglectful dads, violent dads, addicted dads, gang dads. Many of the young people who end up at Te Au Rere have never really felt safe when dad's been at home. And have you ever felt you were in an environment where you were safe?
Yeah, sometimes. When I was by myself, yeah.
When you were by yourself?
Yeah, away, like my own time, my own personal bubble. No one could touch me because, yeah, I could look after myself.
But they can't and they couldn't, not really. Looking after themselves sometimes can involve prostitution for the girls and frequently theft, including aggravated robbery, AGS. That's often why they're in here. When did you first start getting into trouble?
When I was about 13.
And what did you do?
Well, when I was on the streets for like a week, I was stealing cars, doing what I had to take, robbing shops and that.
And when they're stealing cars and robbing shops, they sure as hell aren't getting a formal education. How's school?
I didn't really go to school. I've been out of school for a year now. Yeah.
A year is shorter than many of the kids at Te Au Rere. And this is how the Youth Justice Residence begins the process of attempting to make them safe, putting them in a classroom. They can't go out, so the teachers come to them, and these are people charged with teaching, yes, and with pastoral care, love in a way. Is it possible that for some of these kids, you and the other staff here are the first adults who've really cared about them, potentially?
Potentially. It does come down to, having one champion, just one person that reaches out and says, I care. I hear you. And I care, yeah.
And when they know you mean it, how do they respond?
They respond by them putting their hand out, them greeting you first, probably. One day, actually, last week, I had a pretty moving experience when teaching with one of my fellow teachers here, and a young boy called out and said, well, I didn't think he meant to call out, but he ended up saying, this class has been mean all week. That's huge. That's a huge milestone. you know, when the public school system out there has been a place of negativity, or, you know, somewhere that they don't want to be, they're not welcomed, they're not part of the group, and then they come in here and have a moment like that, you know, that's huge. Yeah. So when you get that kind of response, man, you can go home and feel, I did something good today. Yeah.
And seeing kids that come in with no dreams and no hopes and no ambitions to starting to have some idea about what they might like to do and to achieve in something is amazing.
It's important to remind ourselves what the children who come to Te Au Rere a Te Tonga have often been charged with.
Are the most serious of crimes. So kids that are charged with murder, rape, whatnot, they're all in here. And then you have the other group of kids who are recidivist offenders, stealing cars, theft, all that sort of thing. And this is where our young people will come in when they first arrive into the residence.
They arrive exactly as adult prisoners do, as if into a prison. If they can't get along with the other residents, or if they represent a danger to themselves, they're held in rooms that are pretty grimly like prison cells. But it's what happens when they get out that matters for them and for us all. They either get it right and leave to live lives of safety for them and us, or they get it wrong and make more victims. Amish, you work here now?
Yeah, I do. It's a youth worker.
And you were once here as a resident?
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
Hamish Falika Ono is that most precious of things, a success story. He came here from a background of abject poverty.
Like, you're already on the edge from like having no food and no power and that, especially with teenagers who get quite hungry and sort of have to find your own way to get food.
So what did you do?
Just rob some houses for some food, just for the food, and it's sort of where it started, and then sort of got into fights a lot, just because I was already stressed and that because of the stuff that was going on at home.
He was sent to Te Au Rere and found food, kindness and a sense of possibility. And when he was leaving, the boss, Carl Kuiti, said to Hamish,
"If you're good, get out and do good, come back and I'll give you a job." And that's basically what I took him out for.
Hamish became a dad at 17, and suddenly the very simple things mattered. So simple, many of us would really, utterly take them for granted.
And for me, it was just trying to build a foundation where I could eat and sleep and live comfortable. That was just my main goal.
They do want to be All Blacks and vets, of course, all the normal things children want. But the boy whose dad didn't stop him from leaving home for the streets, aged 13, who stole cars to sleep in, I asked him, "What do you need?"
I don't know, someone that will be there for me, family, just someone that will put food on the table. Yeah, wouldn't ask for much more. Yeah.
It's not much to ask for at 14. And the girl who got hidings, whose mum and siblings got hidings, who learnt violence and then became violent.
It's not a life that anyone should actually have to live.
Whose childhood has been a battle against ugliness. She wants to be a beauty therapist.
I like doing your eyelashes and eyebrows, and I like being pretty. Like, without makeup, I feel like girls wouldn't be them. I don't know, I just really like makeup.
And the boys who stole cars, aged 13, and drove fast, and whose 15-year-old mate was killed in a police pursuit. Guess what those two want to be?
Like me, I want to be a mechanic. That's my goal.
You two, do you want to be a mechanic as well?
Yes.
Well, you obviously like cars, you boys.
Yeah.
Can you stop stealing them?
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
Can they? Can 14 to 17-year-olds who've so much to overcome it? If they could stay at Te Au Rere, they might be able to, but they can't. We have lunch in a cafe the teens themselves run.
So, beef burger, hot chips.
Learning to cook, waiting tables, running a cash register with cash. The food is good, but the future, what does it look like? This is a youth justice residence. When they're not legally young any longer, they have to leave, and when the terms of their custody run out, they have to leave. To where? The homes that damaged them? Foster homes, maybe, although have you tried getting foster care for teens who've been prostitutes at 14, or who find their anger hard to deal with, or who've robbed dairies? Where do they go?
So the kids you talked to today, and you saw some real genuineness and real hope for their future, and we see that all the time, and then they go back into that community like you say, and we see them back so soon after.
Ben Hannafin is the National General Manager of the Youth Justice Residences. We spoke to him in a home Oranga Tamariki and Te Au Rere are now using on another side of Palmerston North. If homes like this work, this might be what happens next after the formal structure and safety of a youth justice residence like Te Au Rere.
They come into residence and they get that structure back and they thrive and they love it, but then we throw them back into an environment where they lost that structure again. And to expect them to do anything other than what they've always done, it's just not working, and that's the change. That's what we're trying to work towards.
So how do you work towards that change?
Environments like this, different alternatives to residences. Residences are an environment that's around safety and managing risk. Most of the kids aren't there because of that need. They're there because we can't find placements for them. We can't find safe placements for them.
So they're in a home, but they can't leave without permission and or supervision, and they have the same level of care as children in the residences do. It's just more normal. But as always, it's about resources. How many homes like this are there in the country?
So we're starting to build them. So we've got 4, one in Dunedin, here in Palmerston North, 2 in Rotorua.
It's a start. Outside boys do bone carvings, the chance to be good at something. Too young to legally leave school, many of them haven't been at school for years. If these places can't prepare them to live in the world, adult prison may be next.
What we know is, historically, the kids do just keep coming back, and then they get to the age of 17 and then they move into the correction system. But what we all want, communities, all partners, is a reduction in people being victims, stopping offending. That's ultimately what we all want. So it's, how do we make this the last interaction they need within our system? How do we make sure they get all the support and resources they need so they don't come back again?
Back at the residence, the car boys told me they don't want to steal cars anymore and then drive dangerously fast. But will they remember that when they get out? Do you really know that? Do you really understand that your life is worth living? Do you really know that?
Yes. I just want to live my life. I don't want to just be coming in and out of here. I don't want to be stealing cars or anything, just on the job.
I hope you get one.
That's it.
When I leave from here, I'm getting a course at Tarata You Trust. Yeah, well, I hope to. But if they can't take me, then I'll probably ask for help, go where I need to go.
Good luck.
Thank you.
One by one they tell me their dreams, small things, but are even small dreams attainable for these kids? Good luck.
Thank you.
I hope you become a beauty therapist.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing me around, and thanks for being so honest and open with me.
You're welcome.
The oldest child I met was 17, most were 14 and 15. I asked Carl Koiti, the boss here, how often their families visit them. For many, it's not often at all. And are there kids whose families never come to visit them?
Yep. Unfortunately, probably the majority of our kids don't get regular visits.
What happens to these children when they get out? Where do they go next? If we get it wrong, we do know the answer. More victims than a life in and out of adult jail. We know that. The question for us all is, how much do we care about getting it right?
Because communally, this is our duty of care. This is what we have to do. If we want to see any difference, we have to step up as a society and say, I care. Yeah, be brave, be bold. Everything Papa Moana Jackson has been telling us for years, 30 years plus. Papa Mason Jury, all of these people who have been telling us what we need to do. We know, we have the answers. We just have to be bold and brave. Yeah.